Hi, everybody.
Hey there.
This is Matt, and that's
Martin from NOVOFLEX.
Welcome back to another webinar about macro mastery. We're really excited. Today we have a wonderful group of questions for you. We received lots and lots of questions, and we've been gathering them up in a special pile, and we put together this presentation just for you. So, yeah, and we made it easy to read too. That's going to be fun. So we're going to focus today, pun fully intended, on both the focusing rail and the auto bellows, because a lot of the questions have come in about that. Again, we said that this is Martin and Matt. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your attention. At the end of this Q&A, I'm going to share a live story with you guys about backyard macro using these tools that you see here. And this is a photograph from when I was out doing this stuff. And these are the results. And if you want to learn how I did it, stick around to the end. But first up, our first question was, why and when would I choose a geared macro rail over an electronic one? That's a good question. Yeah.
Exactly, that's a very good question. If you're into macro photography and you have a macro lens that usually gives you magnification factors all the way up to 1:1 or 2:1, a geared macro rail is just the perfect tool to use. But if you want higher magnification factors, let's say 3:1, 4:1, 5:1, or even 10:1, the depth of field becomes so shallow, a geared or a manual macro rail isn't precise enough anymore. And that's when you would want to use a electronic focusing rail, such as our CASTEL-Micro, which is fine enough all the way up to magnification factors of 50 times life size.
Yeah, it's amazing what I was playing with geared macro rails lately. I remember when you came to hang out with us in the wintertime and showed us the electronic macro rail. I was really blown away by it. But that's a really specialized tool. Here's a sampling of some of the geared macro rails that NOVOFLEX has available. And from my point of view as a user, just going from not having a rail, a focusing rail, to having one is a light year leap in capabilities. Because your ability to simply gain enough depth of field to image stack, to focus stack in post-processing makes it possible to do all of the things that people desire, to see the depth of field that someone would want. So there's a lot of options here, whether you have a single forward and back motion or side to side and forward and back, and some with and without quick releases. My favorite, the one that I've been using lately, and we'll talk more about.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
All of these rails we see here on this slides are fully ARCA compatible, so it's quite easy if you already have one of these, or if you just want to purchase one rail, you can later buy a second one and combine the two of these rails to form a cross-focusing rail. So it's a building block systems, in other words.
Yes, we're not allowed to say Legos, are we? No.
Exactly. That's why I was looking for another word.
Yeah, tell it dansk. Yeah. Oh, anyway, so we have my favorite one. I just popped it up on the side here. Is the CASTEL-MINI-II. If you just want to get into having a focusing rack, this is the best way to just get started. This will give you an incredibly fine geared focus to put underneath your camera. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you at the end and show you the results about how that unlocks great potential in creating amazing macro. And then of course there is the other, which I'm just going to show a quick video here. Like you have playing this, right? So this video is I'm just going to turn the sound down. This CASTEL-Micro
achieving
allows
adequate
us
depth
to
of field and product.
just run
NOVOFLEX
underneath
CASTEL-Micro
and have an
gives you
electronically
maximum
geared
flex different focal points and assembling them using
bellows
software,
system, or even
so
a camera where you can just take really truly precise things. And we'll drop a link
stacking
in the
software
side
like
here so you guys can see it.
Photoshop.
We've done a full webinar on this already, and there's lots of materials out there. But the difference between having the geared one and this one is when you absolutely must have precision. Like if you want to know down to the micron how much distance you're moving because you know your depth of field, and you're going to combine these and you have exactly the right amount of shots, so you have this perfect thing. Let's say you have clients that demand it. That's when you would switch from having just a manually geared rail to an electronically controlled macro focus rail. So those are my feelings about it.
I must say that. Just perfect explanation. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. So yeah, so this is a great example right here of just having shallow depth of field. This one picture right here, you could see how razor thin the depth of field is. You only get the face of this grasshopper, and it's a perfect, I mean, in some ways this is a perfect macro shot because your focus, literally and figuratively, is in the right place. It's on the face and the eyes of this grasshopper, which is something we recognize as humans, the eyeballs, right? However, it's lacking a lot of context. You know he's on wood, but you don't know what the rest of that wood looks like. You don't know what the rest of his thorax or the body looks like. So this would be a great opportunity to stack your focus. But let's move on to question number 2. Can I convert my kit lens into a full-fledged macro lens? Is that possible?
Of course you can. It's quite simple by adding a auto reversing ring, and that's a very cool product by which allows you to just reverse mount your standard kit lens. And we always recommend zoom lenses over prime lenses, and that's a quite easy and inexpensive way of well, let's say convert the lens into some sort of a loop lens. It magnifies everything that's in front of the lens. And by reversing the lens, you lose the entire communication between the camera and the lens. But using one of the NOVOFLEX Auto reversing rings allows you to maintain the entire communication. So you are still able or capable of controlling the aperture, and in some rare cases, you're even capable of using autofocus. Even so, it's quite difficult to use autofocus in macro photography because of the shallow depths of field, and the autofocus will quite literally hunt for something it can grab onto. So it's best to add a focusing rail underneath.
Yeah, but we have a little bit more information about that in the next question too.
Exactly, but why don't we just show people how to set up a camera and a lens by adding the auto reversing ring?
I'd love to see that.
Okay, I have a Fuji X-T1 here in my little studio together with a kit lens. It's a 55-200, and what I just do, I detach the lens from the camera. And what's quite interesting to know is that the auto reversing ring comes with a 58mm filter thread by default. So if your lens has a different filter thread, like this one has, it has a 62mm filter thread, you need one of these adapters in between, one of these little stepping rings. They are available in different sizes, all the way down to 37mm and all the way up to 82mm. So I just add the stepping ring to my lens. I add the camera side part of the reversing ring to the stepping ring. And now you can see it has the camera bayonet mount and the contacts sitting right here. I add the other side to the back of the lens. And now I'm able to reverse mount the lens to my camera. And the cable here, the wire here, allows me to control the aperture in the lens as if the lens would be attached to the camera in the normal way. So that's how easy it is.
That's amazing. When I first got my retro adapter, I was astounded how simply it works. And I use a Nikon Z, so I use the FTC adapter, and but it was a 50mm lens, and I reversed it. It was great. Contrary to your suggestion that use kit lenses, I'm just a little bit of a maverick sometimes. It works out great for me. It's got crazy bokeh, so yeah. So that's fantastic. We have our next question leads right into that one, and I'm going to get it up here, and we'll just look at another shallow depth of field image. Look at that. That one could have also been stepped a little bit in the focus. So does autofocus work with lens reversing rings, which NOVOFLEX, by the way, calls retro adapters, the all caps retro. That's the product designation. So that and lens reversing rings are synonymous. They mean the same thing when we're talking about them.
Well, we kind of gave the answer to that question in the previous question, but well, let's just repeat it. Even though the entire communication is maintained between the camera and the reverse-mounted lens, autofocus will quite literally hunt and in search for the correct focus or to settle on the focus area. Due to the shallow depths of field, there is usually not enough contrast in your shots. And so in most cases, autofocus won't work properly. And that's the main reason we always recommend to use a focusing rail to complement any reversing adapter.
Fantastic. I agree with you. Those are the things that I experience. Sometimes at lower magnifications, autofocus works, but it's definitely not something to rely on. And you waste a lot less time if you simply set it to manual focus, set it to the closest focus point, and then use other means to focus, such as moving your camera using a focus rail.
And there's an interesting fact that I forgot to mention is that most standard kit lenses, if reversed on the camera, well, they have outstanding quality. They live up quite literally. So it's an interesting fact. So just try to reverse mount a standard 18 to 55mm lens, or even that 55 to 200mm lens. It's a very inexpensive lens, but if you reverse mount it, you will be amazed to see what kind of quality these lenses are capable of giving. So
you're saying that they could actually be sharper if you reverse them?
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. You can get even more value out of your kit lens by turning it around.
Exactly.
That seems counterintuitive, but that's
it is.
I love it. I love it. So you can get one more visit to our Grasshopper. You can get shots like this, and this would be a more appropriate shot. We were talking about how head-on before, that it didn't tell enough of a story. This shot from the side of the Grasshopper with that slice of focus tells a more complete story. I just wanted to illustrate that. And this was done with a reversed lens. Great. Question number 5. When I reverse my lens, how does the front of my lens attach to the adapter? I think I want to see this up close.
Okay, let's show this again. I just detach the reverse mounted lens. So let's show this again. This is the front of your lens with the standard filter thread, and let's just repeat it. The reversing ring has a 58mm filter thread by default. That's very important. And if your lens has a different filter thread, you need one of these stepping rings. So there's different stepping rings available, all the way down to 37mm and all the way up to 82mm. Just screw in the stepping ring again. Screw in the camera side portion of the retro adapter. and attach the rear portion to this side. And whoops, where's the red dot? Line up the red dots. And we're ready for shooting stunning macro images.
I love it. Now, while you have that up, the next question leads right into that configuration. This I've been asked, I don't know, 2 times a day. Can you use filters with your lens reversed?
Absolutely, you can. And there's even a 58 millimeter protection filter included in the kit of each reversing ring. So if you already have 58 millimeter filters, even ND filters, polarizers, skylight filters, whatever, you can use them, of course. And if you have filters with different sizes, you may use a stepping ring in between. Absolutely. You may even use a ring light if there is enough working distance in between your subject and your lens.
That makes sense. I mean, I know that, gosh, you need a lot of light when you're doing macro. So using a ring light that's either an LED one with sufficient brightness or it's flash-based makes all the difference when you're trying to get something to freeze and to get enough light in there to compensate for the extra distance from the objective to the image plane. So, well, we have an image break. This is from Alan Shapiro, who we haven't announced it yet, but we're announcing it now. Alan is going to be joining us on a webinar soon, and he shared some of these images with us ahead of time so that we could get you guys a little teaser of what to expect when he comes on, this macro master. Yep. So leading into the next, why would I use a bellows system rather than a retro adapter? What are the differences?
Well, a bellows system could give you even more magnification than you would get by just reversing your lens. So adding some extra extension in between your camera and your lens would normally get you higher magnification factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely experienced this. This is I'm gonna pop it up now so that people can go look at it. If you want to follow the link that we just popped up on the offer side there, that leads to all of the flavors of the auto macro bellows that are available. And I'm going to take you guys on a little tour. We have something else wonderful to share with you. So I'm going to turn on my screen share for a second here. You get to see the background, but look at that. So we have a brand new website at NOVOFLEXUS.com. You're seeing this live broadcast from the United States. This is for the USA market. Many people will find this information useful, even if you don't live in the United States. You're very welcome here. But if we're talking about anything that are offers, then please, consider that this is for people that live in the United States. There are local distributors all over the world for NOVOFLEX. So, but here on our website, we've worked really hard to release a brand new website, which has much more comprehensive information. And you will see, if you go up to macro and you go up to auto macro bellows, you get to this page, you'll see all of the flavors that are available. Why don't you walk us through it? What flavors are available, Martin?
Well, in total, there's 7 different auto bellows available. We have one for Sony E-mount users. We have one for Nikon Z, which is your favorite camera, Matt.
Yes, it is.
We do have an auto bellows available for L-mount users, which includes cameras from Panasonic, Leica, and Sigma. We have one for all the Micro Four Thirds shooters out there, which is Olympus and Panasonic. We have one for EOS R, which is the brand new full-frame mirrorless system camera from Canon. And then we have one for Canon EOS shooters, the SLR shooters out there.
Yep.
So this should include 7 bellows in total. And we got a good question right here in the chat. Someone is asking for Sony A-mount, which is the old Minolta mount. And no, unfortunately, we don't have an auto bellows for or a reversing ring for this mount available.
Gotcha. One of the things I just want to talk about here is that the The auto reversing ring for Nikon is for the Nikon Z system.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is for the Nikon Z system. But if you happen to have some old f-mount lenses, some old f-mount gear, you can combine both parts by putting the original Nikon FTZ adapter in between.
Right, but that means that you can use it with a Nikon Z body and either of the Nikon mounted lenses.
That is correct.
Yep. So it's just some people who have a Nikon F mount body out there and want to use the bellows, not possible.
Not the Auto Bellows.
Not the Auto Bellows, sorry. Yeah.
We have a manual way of attaching a Nikon F-mount camera to a bellows, but not the Auto Bellows.
Right. And the reason being, as we discussed before, is that if you want to pass through the electronic information from the lens and have auto iris diaphragm, have it stop down when you hit the shutter, that's where it starts to matter. It keeps the lens brighter while between shots, and it functions like a regular lens. Let's just leave it at that.
That's a perfect explanation.
Yeah. You don't have any other workarounds. So, yeah. So we'll have another little image break here. Here's another teaser from Alan Shapiro. We're going to stay tuned. Everybody who's signed up here will get another notification of when Alan's webinar is going to happen. We're really looking forward to it. The stuff he's been making forever is beautiful, but this year especially. So question number 8, if I buy a retro adapter, can I convert that to an auto bellows system? That's a great question.
Of course you can. And all the people who've seen the auto bellows will have noticed that some parts on them look familiar, which comes from the fact that the reversing rings can be attached to this little bellows by means of two just standard manual adapters. You need to screw in a adapter on one side, on one end of the auto reversing ring, and another adapter on the other end of the auto reversing rings. And both of these rings make it possible to attach the auto reversing rings to the front and rear standards of this little compact bellows. So if you happen to have two different camera systems, let's say a Canon EOS and Canon EOS R, all you have to do is invest in an auto bellows, let's say for Canon EOS, and purchase an auto reversing ring for Canon EOS R. And then you can just flip around back and forth. It's as easy as that.
We had another good question. We're going to answer everybody's questions possible at the end of this. We see them coming in, but if we see it's like really timely, we're going to stop and add them in as we're talking here. Somebody asked, should I focus with the bellows or with the focusing rack underneath?
That's a very good question. And there's just one answer to that question. You should always focus with the focusing rack underneath.
Yep.
Because focusing with the bellows front standard will always result in a change in your magnification factor.
Right. You won't be able to stack the images, plain and simple.
Exactly.
Yep.
So set the magnification factor with your bellows, and if you want to use focus stacking, or if you want to focus the entire unit, just always use the focusing rack underneath.
Which is why I'm going to remind everybody to check the link over on the right-hand side, the offers. I just put up the CASTEL-MINI-II again. Please click the link and go take a look at it. It's an easy way to get into doing this right. I've enjoyed it. And I'm going to share my story. That's coming up real soon. We're almost to the end of these scheduled questions here. So let's see what we got here. So, oh, look at that. We have a 10D Q&A. Hey! But first, we've done a couple of those. I'm gonna make it fun. I'm gonna take a little break here, and we'll take a look for our first stuff while I load up this other thing that we got to do. Why don't we go into the chat here and see what else we have to answer? Because I have one thing I got to plug in here. What do we have first in the chat? Let's see. Is the auto bellows compatible with Sigma lenses?
Well, that's a good question. What mount does your Sigma lenses have? Are we talking about the Sigma SA mount, or do you own Sigma lenses with a Nikon mount, or well, a Canon mount? That's we should know that first to give
Right.
you a definitive answer.
Okay.
Because Sigma is making lenses for different mounts.
Okay. We're going to give you a chance to answer in the chat, and we'll come back to that. Right now, I'm gonna walk you guys through some fun stuff. So I got all of these items together, and I was working with them last week. And I have the Laowa 2:1 macro native Z-mount lens. I have also a Nikon Z6. I have a Photix wireless trigger. I have the CASTEL-MINI-II. And I also have the Auto Bellows. So first I set up using just the Laowa lens with the focusing rack underneath. And here I have 2 LED lights set up on either side of the macro object to provide, I'm in open shade here, but I provided extra light because I wanted to pop out from the foreground, but I still wanted the background to have some color in it. So I was balancing using those 2 Nanlite Pavo Tube 260s, which I love. They're great for macro work. And here you can see that I'm checking my focus, and I have a little bit of a shot from the side here. I sped this up a little bit so you could see the travel distance is very generous with the CASTEL-MINI-II. And just with this one lens, which is a little special as macro lenses, one of the reasons I chose it, it goes to 2:1 natively instead of just 1:1. I can go back and forth and set up a pretty generous image stack. And here, this image stack that I did, I think I did about 77 images on this one shot alone. And you can see as I'm focusing on the back there, just how close I got with the zoom in, and then my check for composition here. And in just a second, it's going to move into high speed, and we're going to see a time lapse. So I'm using a wireless trigger on purpose because I don't want to touch the camera and cause it to vibrate, because every vibration is magnified by the ultra magnification that we have. And here I played it 4 times in a row just to show you how many shots that I took. It's just a little manual adjustment and then take a picture, a little manual adjustment, and then take a picture. I slowed it down a little bit to show you what it's like. And it looks laborious, but it's really exciting because you're getting from the very closest point to the very furthest point. You are getting absolutely every little slice of detail that you can, so you can bring it into programs like Helicon Focus later. And this is a video clip from inside of just me racking it back and forth, so you can see just how shallow that depth of field can be, and why a focusing rack like the CASTEL-MINI-II is absolutely pivotal to this process. You can see just me moving the rack is causing it to vibrate, and I'm on a really solid tripod and a really solid head, and I'm using this NOVOFLEX gear. So you want to move it a little bit and wait, let it settle down, and take a picture. And here's the result. This is the stacked image from all of those 77 pictures. And from tip to tail, all of the things I wanted to be in focus are in focus. So this is just to show you from behind what it looks like. On the left, depending on how you mount it, you can have your geared focus on the left and then the locking knob on the right. So if you want to be extra careful, you can turn it and then lock it if you have a windy situation. Or if you're just storing it, you can lock it also to make sure it doesn't move. Or if you're going vertically up and down, some people do copy work or macro work this way. You might need to lock it in between just to make sure it doesn't move at all. So this was a lot of fun, this process. And oh my gosh, we're all sort of stuck at home right now. I just walked down to my backyard and I grabbed a flower from my garden, and I had that. So next I took the Auto Bellows and I mounted it to my Z with the Laowa lens. And this Laowa lens, I have to point out, does not have any electronics. Its diaphragm is manual. But I still really like using it because I choose my aperture, I choose my focus, and then I stop down and everything's fine. So once I put on the bellows, I was focusing first with the bellows. And this is what you're seeing here is me finding that front edge of the focus in between my 2 lights. And I just had one of those arms that have little grabbers on it, and I put the flower on that. It's on the end of a C-stand. I tried to get as good as I could a purchase on this. So let me move this over to the other side. So now we can see that I'm just getting my focus right there, trying to find the right place to be, and a couple of angles so you can see what it's looked like. Yeah, and I really took another video here of the magnification. You can see just by adding the bellows, and I chose a composition where I could see a little bit of the green on the left-hand side on purpose, because I wanted that contrast between the red and the fuchsia and the green. And I wanted to show you what it looks like while you're actually focusing. And because the Z can pull nice video, this is me finding that composition right now and saying, that's the pop that I wanted to see between the green and the fuchsia. And honestly, without the CASTEL-MINI-II, I would have a hell of a time doing this, trying to move a tripod back and forth. It would be impossible without a focusing.
Just cumbersome and impossible.
Impossible. I mean, like, I would have had to put like a really long, like, rail on and then move things manually. And why not have the gearing for just the right amount? So yeah, this is me just focusing in and out and trying to find that the first focus and the last focus and a good composition. And it's going to pop over to showing you the end of the story here, which is the actual shooting. So this is the final result. This was, I guess, 55 images that I shot right here. And I didn't know that there was that much pollen all over, what is this, the stamen of the flower. And like, it's crazy. And this is why the flower is called the bee's balm, because my gosh, they love to come in there and get all covered with that pollen. I guess it's a really sweet flower. So next I took and I put the lens at maximum magnification, which is 2:1 on the lens, and maximum magnification on the bellows. And I said, how close can I get? I mounted the CASTEL-MINI-II underneath it after I racked out the bellows as much as I could here. And you see me focusing all the way to 2:1 right there. And I said, how close can I get? And my gosh, the results really speak for themselves. I had to move the tripod first so that I got within the zone of being able to use the CASTEL-MINI-II. It was a very exacting process. And I tried to make sure it was within the frame of the original picture so we could go from close to closer to closest as we look at the end of this. And I'm just going to jump forward a little bit here. And there I am showing you the range of motion that I have there. And thank goodness I had all of that range, because I had a lot of ground to cover when I was stacking this image. And I even chose to not stack everything. But this is the final image. I decided not to go for the next image down, but I did. You can see it's not even pollen. It's like it's all wet. But this flower had been dead for 3 days, but it still had these little drops of liquid. So there's the close shot, the first one. And here's the closer shot, the second one. And then here's the closest shot right there. And to me, that was a really good afternoon working through my relationship to these tools, my relationship to a flower in my yard, enjoying my time around the house, because obviously a lot of us have a little bit limited mobility right now. And this is just a lead out to the video. This is the assembly and disassembly of what I had. And ignore my shop table out there. This is what I use when I'm cutting wood and doing projects and stuff. But all of these components, when I take them apart, fit very neatly in my bag. They're very compact. They're light for what they are, especially the benefits that I get out of doing this. I'm really, really enthusiastic about having both the CASTEL-MINI-II and the Auto Bellows F as macro options in my bag. So yeah, I wanted to share that story with you guys because I'm so excited. I had a lot of fun creating this content. I had a lot of fun just being a photographer and doing the macro work. And I'm glad that I have an opportunity to join Martin and talk to you guys about it and say, look, it's possible with what you have right now. And if you add just one thing, it can get so much better, and that would be that CASTEL-MINI-II. If you want to get really, really deep into macro, add the Auto Bellows in there, and then there's very little you can't do.
Hey, that's full light. Well, Matt, thanks for showing us the beauty of your garden.
Well, my pleasure.
You could really see that you had a fun afternoon.
Yeah. So I did. Enough about me. I know that other people came here with questions. Thanks for listening to my story. Let's go take a look at the questions.
There's a good question on your work. How much do you turn the focusing knob for each image?
Wow. I could show you know what? I'll make sure that this video becomes available to you guys, either in the form that it's in now, or as a clip from the webinar or something. I have it here. I could show you. I only moved it a fraction of a fraction. Let me just pull it off. When I was turning it, and I'm going to unlock it here, I only moved it about that much. Just about that much. That's what I did for every single one of them, was that much.
So there's another answer to that question. There is a lot of tables you could find online where you find the exact numbers of how great the depth of field for a certain aperture setting is, or a certain distance with the bellows would be. And there's an easy way of how you can find out for yourself. Just insert a ruler in your image, and then you can see how far the depth of field would extend at a certain aperture setting. And then you would halve that number, because the images should need to overlap each other in order for the stacking software to process the images. And then you know how far you should turn the focusing knob for each image.
There's a graduated scale on every rail, so that when you turn it, you can see the exact amount of distance that you're traveling. That's also on the Auto Bellows. So if you want it to be mathematically correct, you could totally do it. Me, I'm a backyard macro photographer, at least for the moment, you know, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to eyeball it. I'm just going to do a little tiny bit each time. And it was sufficient for the purposes of what I was doing. So,
do you use electronic or manual shutter?
This one, I'm using the mechanical shutter inside of the Z6. I don't like using the electronic shutter unless I have to at an event where it's required to be absolutely silent.
Okay, so Barry, now you know. Okay, what else do we have?
Danilo asked me what's the length of the lens. This lens is the Laowa 100 millimeter 2.8. The mount I got is native for the Nikon Z, but they have many of them. There are lots of amazing macro lenses out there. This just happens to be the one I chose.
So Danilo asks, is the Auto Bellows compatible with Canon camera and Sigma lens? Yes, there is an Auto Bellows available for the Canon EOS system. So if you're using Canon SLR camera and a Sigma lens with EF mount, you could definitely use this bellows for your equipment.
I've also used the IRIX 150 millimeter macro lens, which I also adore. The longer your focal length, many things happen, but the thing I really enjoy is the more working distance you have between the front of your lens and the object, which gives you more room to light it. So I do like longer focal length macro lenses.
So what else do we have?
Brenda asks, so if you go back and forth with an unexact movement, will Helicon Focus assemble photos and overlap them even if they're out of order? I can answer the first part. My unexact movements, it totally had no problem to stack them. I've never shot focus out of order, so I don't know how it would handle that.
Well, what I can say is that Helicon Focus is very forgiving. Okay. It forgives a lot of mistakes you can make during stacking sessions.
All right, so what equipment is used for digitizing 35 millimeter slides at 1:1, or photographing just a small portion of a slide 5:1?
Well, we do have an accessory available for our focusing racks. It's a slide duplicator, and it would slide right into these little holes here. And this slide duplicator is compatible with practically all of our bellows, auto bellows, or focusing rails. And you can digitize 35mm slides. They should be framed, of course, and you could also digitize medium format slides. And Roger, you're asking about a portion of a slide, 5:1. Then I would definitely recommend, let's say, a Canon. There's a Canon loop lens available, which is capable of 5:1, or an auto bellows with an appropriate lens that would give you five times magnification.
Okay. All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Is the auto bellows compatible with Sigma? We answered that.
Ball F and adapters. I think we answered that as well.
Mm-hmm. When using a focusing rail or a bellows on a copy stand, will the weight of the camera or lens cause the standards to drift down?
No, they won't. As long as if you're not using any heavy, let's say, large format equipment, any extremely heavy lenses with built-in shutters. So if you're using standard equipment, DSLR equipment, they definitely won't drift at all.
Right. And you always have that friction lock knob too.
Exactly.
So if you find that whatever you're doing for some reason causes it to pull downwards, it's not been my experience either. Yeah. I know that this was asked a couple of times and answered also in chat. This session has been recorded. It will be recorded. It will forever be available after the webinar. You'll get an automatic email at the end of this in about 12 to 24 hours that says, here's the replay. And it's a replica. Just like this, you'll see the chat happen in real time. We will also post it on YouTube where you can jump around to different portions should you want to. Okay. Sorry if anybody had technical difficulties. A lot of people are using the internet these days, so it could be local to you. All right, let's see.
So I saw several questions asking how the auto bellows is being set up. If you just have the plain ball F bellows, should we just set up complete auto bellows?
Let's do
for people to see. Okay, here's our auto reversing ring again. So you just need two adapters, as I explained earlier. So this one here, it screws right in here. And the second adapter screws right in here. And now you can attach both parts of these this auto reversing ring to the front and rear standard of our bellows. We're being locked with these two knobs here. Back. And now you've turned this little bellows into a fully automatic bellows for Fuji X mount. And there's, as I explained earlier, if you own several camera systems, all you have to purchase is a second auto reversing ring, and then you can just flip between camera systems. It's that easy.
I really love that you're not locked in. Like what you're buying is an object, a tool that allows you to switch lenses, to switch camera systems in the future, just by switching the mounting rings or the retro adapter. Thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I want to add something from the chat that Brenda said regarding our copy stand question before. Brenda has a lot of experience with repro work, and I take her words very seriously when she talks. She says you don't want to leave your gear on the copy stand when it's not in use, though. So don't let gravity affect it. Just put it on when you're using it and take it off. And thank you for that, Brenda.
Thank you.
Danilo asked, is it correct, the statement that the shorter the lens is, the better the magnification?
The higher the magnification gets. That's correct. The shorter the focal length, the higher the magnification gets. Yes.
Okay.
But also the closer you get to your subject, which will make it difficult to light your subject properly. So it's sort of a thing you have to, well, figure out yourself.
Mark asked us this. NOVOFLEX sells a lens for the Auto Bellows. Please tell us about it.
Well, we do sell a lens. That's correct. It's a fully manual lens that comes from Schneider Kreuznach. It's a 90 millimeter lens, and we recommend this lens if you want to do copy work with the bellows, all the way up to 1:1 magnification. And this lens has extreme sharpness. It's just a high-end lens. It's so if you're looking for high-end images, that's a perfect lens. But please remember, it's a fully manual lens, so you have to remove the reversing ring, add the manual lens in the front, and a manual camera adapter in the back.
Gotcha. We had going back to that question we had about the wide-angle lens, and is there a limit to how wide you can use for macro? What is there a focal length beyond which you don't want to use or cannot physically use a wide-angle lens?
Well, that's an answer. That's a question to which there is no easy answer. But I wouldn't go wider as, let's say, 35 to 28 millimeters, but it's a tricky question. And we had a lot of work to do here at our company, planned in trying out all different kinds of lenses, and with all the lenses that are out there for mirrorless systems these days, it became more tricky than it was with SLR lenses, because they are completely different designs compared to standard SLR lenses.
Right, but you wouldn't use like a 15 millimeter.
No, I would not.
I tried that once.
So what happened? Tell us.
Didn't work.
Couldn't get anything in focus, I suppose.
Whatsoever. It was like trying to focus into the fifth dimension.
Okay, that's a very good answer.
Super wides, no way, no way. So yeah, so just keep in mind, if you're planning on using existing lenses that you have, really wide lenses aren't going to work, and very wide lenses, so you're going to need to check on that first. So
okay, that fly is really killing me.
So Mark said he's using the slide copying adapter and loves it. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much. All right. What specifically does the Auto Bellows offer versus a manual focusing unit?
Say it again.
What specifically does the Auto Bellows offer versus the manual focusing unit? I'm trying to understand Rick's question here too. I think
he's mixing up two different things. The manual focusing is done by the focusing rail, and then we have the bellows.
Right. So Rick, I'm gonna paraphrase, and please reply in the chat. Are you wondering what the difference is between this and that, or this bellows that has the electronic connection and a bellows that does not have an electronic connection? So let us know what difference, if you're talking about two different kinds of bellows with and without electronics, or bellows and focusing rail. We can definitely speak to that. I'll tell you this, the bellows, having the auto diaphragm and having the lens information pass through and having it act like a regular lens, with the exception of trying to use autofocus, is very valuable to me. Otherwise, you're looking through a dark lens. It's kind of like in the days of having a view camera, where if you forgot, like sometimes it was just stopped down, so you'd have to open it up to focus and then stop it down to take the picture. And it got darker as you stopped down until the shutters got better. So, yeah, it's it's really important to think about that. If you want to have macro, your workflow is going to be magnified times the number of pictures you take and times the number of setups that you have. So every efficiency that you can add into that process ends up paying you back in time or in money, especially if people pay you to do product work with macro. So consider and weigh those as you're choosing. But the thing that I took out of the last 2 weeks, and the most important thing I understand, is the CASTEL-MINI-II is just never leaving my bag from now on. I'm going to use it for the other stuff that I do, like astro landscape work, where I can do focus stacks from foreground to the stars. I have ideas on how to make that help, so I don't need to change my focus a lot. Yeah, so my wheels are turning.
Looking forward to seeing those images.
I think we nailed it. Rick said, "Got it." I think he understands. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, then we did everything right, I guess.
I think we did. So let's see if there's any other essential information we have that we prepared for everybody. Aha! If we missed your question, we're very sorry. We tried to scrub the chat. We will follow up. We always look through the chat and we always reply. So we'll get back to you by email. And thank you so much for participating. We appreciate you being here. It would mean a lot to us if you join us in the other places we do stuff. On YouTube, it's Novoflex US. Our brand new website is novoflexus.com. And then there's a global Facebook page, which is just Novoflex, where you can hear everything Novoflex in many languages. Yeah, it's just all about gratitude at this point. We appreciate you. We're so glad that you are here. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And yeah, outside of that, we hope that you have a wonderful and productive day. We hope that your imagery is joyous and that you enjoy doing what you do, and that you find that the process is efficient. If you choose Novoflex, we thank you for that. If you have questions about it, please let us know. We would love to answer your questions, and we love helping you find the things that help you do what you want to do. So please send those in. If anybody can't find something that they want to find on our website, just reach out to us. You can reply to the webinar invite. You can find us on social media. We do want to help you. Martin, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Well, thanks to everyone. Thanks for being interested in macro photography, and a big shout out to you, Matt, because you did most of the work this time for this webinar. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I look forward to doing more. So until then,
it was fun. Bye.
Peace. Have a good time, everybody.